Hello, everyone. This is Lala, and today I'm going to be talking about the Era 2 women vets who have done at least 3 seasons. I posted the video of the Era 1 women a day ago. I'm going to post the Era 3 women tomorrow, and then the Era 4 women the day after. I think that Era 2 women are definitely the most interesting to get into because I think as a collective, they are definitely the strongest and they don't have the issue with the dated formats like the Era 1 girls do, but they've had many other opportunities compared to the Era 3 and the Era 4 women. And I do think things are oddly more competitive in Era 2 compared to some of the later eras. And a lot of the goats are here. So let's not waste too much time. Let's get into it. Era 2 is definitely an interesting era with a lot of the women, since I believe that they overall have the strongest of the strongest women due to many of them having so much success compared to all the women in the other eras. We do see them in a lot of different formats, since this is the era where we saw some individual seasons, obviously a lot of team seasons, and some dual seasons. So there is that. The data format really isn't as much of a thing as this era compared to era one. The one thing about these women is that a lot of them are just very stuck in their era or early era three. So the longevity for them, it's kind of weird because they've done many seasons, but they haven't played in like 15 or so years as well. So it's kind of hard to see how they would adapt in the modern day with all of that context. Anyways, let's just get right to it. This first group are literally the worst of the ones here. They really don't have much individual accomplishment and outright have poor records when you really think about it and compare them to everyone else. At 20th is Siobhan Torres, who competed on the Duel 2, the Words, and Cutthroat. She was an early boot on all of them, essentially, but she was voted in and eliminated on the Duel 2. She was the first woman out on the Ruin. She was disqualified third, I think, due to her ruptured boob in a daily. She was known as being a weak performer even then. And then she was about to go home in the third elimination, but she ended up quitting beforehand. So she never lasted long. She has a 0-1 record, and yeah, just a very poor record overall. At 19th is Mandy Moyer, who competed on Fresh Meats 2, Cutthroat, Rivals 1, and Battle of the Extras 1. So she made it like, yeah, she made it right before the end game on Fresh Meats 2, so I'll give her that. Not a great season, but whatever. And then she was out second on Cutthroat because she was seen as weaker and she was kind of getting played there too. It kind of just showed that when it comes to head to head combat, she's not really there. She was paired with Jen on Rivals 1, and this caused her to make it to her first and only final, where they did get last on and had to be essentially DQ'd on the first day because they're so far behind and the chemistry wanted to move forward. On Battle of the Exes one, she was on the outs, not due to her, but due to Russ's overplaying. She did win her one elimination here, but then she was booted second. So yeah, she has two early boots and one deep and one endgame run. Her elimination record is 1-3, so that's a 25% rate as she won one and lost three. Not much to say here. At 18th is Melinda Collins, who competed on Fresh Meat 1, Lagana 3, Cutthroat, Battle of the Seasons 2, All Stars 2, and All Stars 3. So she's also someone who doesn't have much good going for her. She was booted almost immediately on Fresh Meat 1 due to the cast not locking the Austin cast. Continent 3, she did make it about two-thirds through. That's mainly due to that entire newbies team having a huge alliance of people from her real world season, but when it was time to go in, she flopped. Yeah. Cutthroat, she made it midway through the season, didn't really do anything notable on it. And then she was booted second again in Battle of the Seasons 2, kind of for the same reasons as Fresh Meat 1, but they're considered the older people. On All Stars 2, this is really her only good season where she did win an elimination. The other one from Teen was essentially given to her. She won a few dailies and she did make it to the final where she was second place. So I do give for that. But when you only have that good season out of six, I believe that's not really a good sign. And then she quit. Yeah, she quit All Stars 3 second because she was still injured from the All Stars 2 final. Her elimination record is 2 to 4, meaning she won 2, lost 4, and has a 33% rate. Success rate in eliminations. At 17th is Johanna Bata, who competed on Fresh Meat 1, The Gauntlet 3, The Island, and The Ruins. So she was booted third in Fresh Meat 1 due to the Austin thing. She did end up winning The Gauntlet 3, but that was mainly due to the rookie side having most people from her real world season, and she kind of just bulldozed her way there. But even with the way they won, it was seen as rigged because they gave up in the final essentially, and then there's that stupid rule that caused them to win the island. She got in good with the Kenny and Bananas crew, and they kind of carried her to the end game of the season, but she couldn't win when she needed to. And then the Ruin, she's moved like 2/3 through the season. So she doesn't have really early boots. Like she's not ever one of the first two boots, and she has some deep ones. But when you look at her individual accomplishments, there's really not a whole lot there. And especially when you're ranking against Era 2 women, she would be lower on the list, where if she was an Era 1 person with these same sets, she would be much higher. Her elimination record is horrible. It's at 0% since she won 0 and lost 4, at least based on how the challenge counts it. At 16th is Janelle Casanave, who competed on the Inferno 3, the Gauntlet 3, All Stars 2, and All Stars 4. So the thing with her is that she's very inconsistent. She either makes it to the end or goes pretty early. She wins the Inferno 3, and she's the runner-up on All Stars 2, so she has two finals to her name. But then there are seasons where she goes early, where I believe she's the third boot in the Gauntlet 3, if I'm remembering it correctly, so that's not good there. And then she quits first on All Stars when she was already going to elimination, but to the whole Ayana mess, she quit. She has a 1-to-1 elimination record, so she has a 50% rate. She won one and lost one. There are some accomplishments, but when you look at her resume, there's really not a whole lot there. So she's kind of like Johanna in that way, but a bit more to it, though not much. Okay, so the next women here are definitely a bit more seasoned and a bit more accomplished with more deep runs, more seasons. Some of them have good elimination records, and there's a lot more to their catalog compared to the women below them. At 15th is Casey Cooper, who played on Fresh Meat 1, The Duel 1, The Gauntlet 3, The Ruined, and All Stars 2. What's interesting about her is that a lot of her stats are, they don't really capture the full picture. So let's get into her elimination record, which is 5 to 3, meaning she won 5 and lost 3 with a 63% rate. So I believe all of her elimination wins were on Fresh Meat 1, where she and Rush cheated the system where they intentionally packed fighter so they could win, and then every other season afterwards she lost all of eliminations. But it's still there, so I have to think about it. She made it to third place on her first season, and it's the only finals appearance she made it on. The Duel one was a poor season. I believe she was booted third. So yeah. Um, the Gauntlet 3, she did make it deep into the end game, though that was mainly because she was on the Stacked Veterans team, but she was working with the winning side. And if it wasn't for Cora screwing them over, there's a good chance that she makes it to the final. So yeah, she kind of got screwed over there. Um, the win, she was intentionally kept around until the final round before the final because the champions saw her as a weakling and she was a double agent working for them. All Stars 2, she won a daily and she was doing pretty well, but it was found out that she was pregnant, so they had to pull her. So pretty decent, though her stats on paper are more accomplished than when you get into the meat and grits of it. At 14th is Teresa Jones, who played on Fresh Meats 2, Cutthroat, Rivals 1, Rivals 2, Free Agents, Battle of the Exes 2, and Double Agents. So Teresa is an interesting case because she's always been one of the more athletic women on the show, but she's prime proof that athletics isn't enough and you need a social and political game. So she did make it to the end game of Fresh Meats 2, where she was playing the middle, though that's mainly due to Ryan playing the middle more than her really doing much of anything. But she had a good first season there. Her second season was relatively under the radar. She was on the blue team, if I'm remembering correctly, and they're kind of the losing team for a while. But she made it to the second last round of the final. You could argue that she was screwed over there since Tina put her all with her, but intentionally threw it for Tori. She was booted very early on in Rivals 1. She was booted second due to a political move made by Paula. Rivals 2, she was booted around mid season, and you expect to see her political moves start to backfire and catch up with her here, where she voted for Leroy when she didn't need for him to go home, and all that mess kind of just came back to bite her in the butt. Free agent, she had a pretty good season. She won an elimination, so yay for her. Which is where it's rare for her to win an elimination. She was making political moves, but she kind of like backtracked on it, or she played double agent. But she got booted right before the final, and this was an individual season that she had success on. Battle of the Exes 2, she played a good political game with Wesley, made it deep into the season, but the redemption twist screwed them over. Miss Bananas coming back, causing them to be booted, but thankfully to Naya, she made her only final where, because she's the most recently eliminated one, they called her back. She partnered with Leroy and got second. But the fact that she had to make it to the final under the circumstance really isn't good. And then Double Agents was just sloppy all around, and she was booted midway. Her elimination record is really poor. She only won two and lost seven, meaning that she has a 22% win rate. So essentially, good athletically. She has her political moments, though she does too much. Um, she has several deep runs, but her poor elimination record and only making it to one final under very circumstances is why she's here. At 13th is Deanna Brown. Rest in peace to her. She played on Fresh Meat 1, The Duel 1, The Gauntlet 3, The Duel 2, The Ruins, Battle of the Exes 1, Rivals 2, and Battle of the Exes 2. So the interesting thing with DM is that she makes it deep most of the time. The only seasons that she didn't make it to the end game on were the Ruins and Battle of the Exes 2. Let's speak about the Ruins. So her being booted first was odd. There's been some speculation that she intentionally threw it, but we don't know. And then Battle of the Exes 2, she had to report because she was unfortunately dying. So she was partnered with Derek in Fresh Meat 1. They made a lot of political moves once they had their winning streak, but it came back to bite them in the butt, causing them to be booted right before the final. The Duel 1, she was in the Majority Alliance, which took her far into the season, but she was the second last one booted before the final there. She did make it to the end in the Gauntlet 3. She was working with the people in Power and was on the veterans team, but they lost due to their ridiculous rule on that season. Dude, Duel 2 was really her first season in a while playing without CT. She was yet again in the Majority Alliance. She won a few dailies. And that's the thing with DM. She's good at dailies, but in the other categories, she's not really good at. But she was booted right before the final here. Battle of the Exes 1, she and CT were paired together, and they worked really, 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 really well together. I also forgot to mention regarding the Duel 2, she won her own elimination. And then Rivals 2, she was booted right before the final there. So, like I mentioned, the thing with DM is that she's good at dailies, but eliminations she's poor at, as she only won one elimination and lost five, meaning she's a 17% win rate. And I think her elimination record is why she has so many end game runs, but so few final runs, as she's only made it to two finals. And clearly, her elimination record is the reason why. But generally, she's very good socially. She makes it deep most of the time. At 12th is Kellyanne Judd, who played on The Island, The Ruins, Bloodlines, Rivals 3, Battle of the Eras, All Stars 1, All Stars 3, World Championship, and All Stars 5. So, Kellyanne started her journey on the show on a very good run, where she made it right before the final on The Island, and she was the runner-up on the ruins, where it was just her and Sarah on the team. And despite being disliked and despite being on the losing team, she made it to the end. So that was very impressive. She took a break and had middling runs on the Bloodlines and Rivals 3, where she was booted mid-season on both of them. She came back on All Stars 1 and All Stars 3 and had two good runs as she made it to two finals there. If there was a female winner on All Stars 1, she most likely would have been the winner, so that's very impressive. She won a few eliminations there. She got fourth on All Stars 3, and these two seasons definitely boosted her up as her immediate seasons beforehand, like I mentioned, Bloodlines and Rivals were mediocre at best. World Championship was an okay season. She made it pretty deep, but not endgame deep. But her final two runs have been very, very bad and definitely brings her down as she was the first boot on Battle of the Eras and booted second on All Stars Rivals. She was known to be good at eliminations, but that has weakened recently, as she now has a 66 rate, meaning she has won six and lost six, meaning that she has a 50% win rate. So yeah, she's very inconsistent now, and she's kind of on a losing streak recently. And her daily performances are decent. She can win some, but others she completely flusters at. Okay, so this next set of women would be at the very top if they debuted in any other era, but because they're in era two, they're just in the second half and in the second quarter of this list. At 11th is Jillian Zoborowski, who competed on the Gauntlet 2, the Gauntlet 3, and Fresh Meats 2. So for someone who only did three seasons, she has a great record. So her first season, she was out right before the final, but like I mentioned beforehand, when it comes to the Gauntlet 2, it's kind of hard to see who did what in those seasons due to the weird format. But this is still an impressive rookie season for her. And she was one of the true hardcore rookies of that season. The Gauntlet 3 was another team season. Her back was against the wall, and I do critique her political game throughout her run overall, and that's one of the reasons why she's only at 10. But she had to win several eliminations to get to the end, and she was one of the few from that season and that team that you can really say really, really earned her win. And then she was on Fresh Meats too, so we saw how she did on Pair season, which was very interesting. She yet again was on the out. She had to go into a few eliminations there and really had to strategize and to work her way to get to her second final, where she got third. Her elimination record is great as she won five and only lost one with an 83% rate. So she only did a few seasons, but she did great in them. She would be higher if it wasn't for her or political game. At 10th is Tori Hall, who competed on the Gauntlet 3, the Duel 2, and Cutthroat. So her record is also very great for someone who only did three seasons. And she's above Jillian because one, she won more than once, and two, she really did grasp the political element of the game, and you saw that through all three of her seasons. She was also one of the hardcore rookies, but she slid right into the Austin Alliance and helped run that team, and it got her her first win. The duel, too, she played on an individual season. She was on the majority alliance throughout that season, and you can tell her plan was to stay out of elimination. But the one time that she did go into elimination, which was right at the end game of the season, she lost. And then in Cutthroat, she really was the linchpin of that red team, controlling all the politics and really holding them together. And she was doing double the work because she really, really, really wanted Brad to get the win. And she got two wins. So when you look at the two wins, they're seen as kind of weaker wins. Whereas the Gauntlet 3, the team initially gave up because they thought they lost, but they didn't realize Big Easy was DQ'd, so that ended with them winning. And then Cutthroat, there's mess with the other teams where the Grey team essentially got not food no dehydration. They suffered from that, so they were DQ'd, and they're only competing against Jen and Emily on the blue team. So she has a 2-1 elimination record, which is a 67% rate. But when you look at one of those wins, Tina threw it to her as a winning present. So that's the thing with Tori. She has done very well, but when you look at her individual stats and how much of it she did on her own, it's pretty lacking in comparison. At ninth is Jen. Three Galva, who competed on the Inferno 3, The Island, The Duel 2, Fresh Meat 2, Cutthroat, and Rivals 1. So she's someone who's done well on most, if not all, of her seasons. So she shows a great consistency there. So on the Inferno 3, she kind of got the rookie treatment, but she made it to the end game of the season. Still, so there's that. She made it to the end of the island. She was playing a more under the radar game there, and it did her well. She stayed out of the drama and she got to her first final. The Duel 2's her worst season, though I think she won two eliminations. Yeah, she still won two eliminations on that season, and she just missed the end game there. So even her weakest season wasn't a bad season. And then with her final three season, she made it to three straight finals. You could tell she knew what she was going to do politically and what she needed to do to get to the end, which shows a consistency there. She was playing both sides very well on Fresh Meats 2, and it got her to that final. Hutch thought she was performing pretty well despite her being on the losing team, which is why she was never sent into elimination that season and made it to the end where it was just her and Emily competing for the team on that final. And then, due to her relationships, she also got in good on Rivals 1, where she made it to the end, and that's how she ended her run. The thing with Jen, which is why she's not higher, is her performances in finals. She's gotten last in all of the finals. In the island, there's only two teams, so if you're runner up, you're last. Fresh Meat 2, she was last. Cutthroat, she was last. And Rivals 1, she was last. So that's why she's not any higher. Her elimination record is 5-3, so she won 5, lost 3 with a 63% rate, a percentage rate. Okay, so at 8 is Aviv Bruno, who competed on Fresh Meat 1 Battle of the Eras and Vets and New Threats. So the interesting thing with her is that she won her first season, i.e. Fresh Meat 1. She was partnered with Durrell, who was in the Majority Alliance. They won one mission and one elimination at the end, and then she did the puzzle that got them the win. And then she disappeared for 20 years, essentially, and then she was an alternate who became a cast member on Battle of the Era. She barely knew anyone, but she ended up getting good with a lot of the people there. She was under the radar, and she got to the end where she was booted in the second to last round before the final against Jenny. And this was kind of shocking because everyone thought she'd be booted early. Then she's cast on the next season, and she does it again with a bunch of people that she wasn't even on last season. So one thing I'll say about Aviva, she has a very, very good social game. She can adapt to anyone who is around her, and we've seen this in more than one season. She was yet again in the Majority Alliance. She did decent in the dailies. She went into the elimination a few times. She won one, and then she lost again in the second to last round before the final. So she has a 20-year career gap. She only did three seasons, but she's done well in all of them. She has a 2-2 elimination record, meaning that she won two and lost two, so she has a 50% rate. At seventh is Emily Schramm, who competed on Cutthroat, Battle of the X's 1, Rivals 2, and Battle of the Eras. So her first three seasons are brilliant. I don't really feel like I have much to say about it, but let's just get to it anyways. So she was on the blue team on a rookie season in Cutthroat, and because she was a rookie, she had to go into elimination a few times, but she took it on the chin. But because she was such a strong performer and very well respected, she was one of the few people from the blue team who made it to the final. So it's just she and Jen competing against these much larger teams. Battle of the XS1, she was paired with Chai, and they had to go into several eliminations yet again because they're still seen as a newer team. They weren't in the majority alliance, but they fought their way to get to the end and they got third place in the final. So this is her second consecutive final. And then in Rivals 2, pretty much it was obvious she and Paula were going to win. They won so many of the dailies that season, and no one wanted to throw them into elimination. So it's essentially a cakewalk for her to get there. Ultimately, she would be hired if it wasn't for a Battle of the Airs, where she was booted like third way through the season because Laurel threw the challenge when she was eliminated because she won Emily Gone, and then she went home against Tina. But otherwise, she's good in daily. She has a very consistent track record outside of that one season. And then she has a 5-1 elimination record, meaning that she won five and lost one. And it's crazy that someone with her track record is only at seventh with the Era 2 woman, where she probably would have been first in any other era. At six is Paula Miranek, who competed on the Duel 1, the Inferno 3, the Gauntlet 3, the Island, Duel 2, Fresh Meat 2, Cutthroat, Rivals 1, Battle of the Exes 1, and Rivals 2. So she's done 10 seasons, if I'm remembering correctly, and she's made it to the end game in seven of them, which is very, very, very impressive, and it shows consistency. So she was an early boot on the Duel 1 because she was a rookie and the one key was gone. She was seen as one of the stronger women on the Inferno 3. She was thrown into elimination against Anissa, and she found her way to get into the final. It was her first final. Then the Gauntlet 3, she was seen as one of the stronger women. Yet again, she avoided elimination that entire season and made it to a second consecutive final. Lost that because of the whole big easy situation. She made it to her third consecutive final on the island, where she essentially kissed up to Johnny Bananas and Kenny, and she was playing for them, but she didn't get on the boat because she thought she was going to be on the boat, but it gave her runner up instead of first place. Things kind of got off within her next few seasons, where the Duel 2, she was on the outs due to her sloppy political move and her attachment to Dunbar, which really did her in. She was booted like two-thirds throughout the season. She played very messy there, but it wasn't an early boot. Fresh Meat 2 was an early boot where she was booted third, though that's mainly due to her connection to Kenny more so than anything she really did. But she turned it around during her last few seasons, where on Cutthroat she was in the majority alliance, but she tried to avoid elimination all season, but it was her time to go in. She did not take it well at all, and she was booted right before the final. Rivals one, she was paired with Evelyn. They were the strongest team. They went into one elimination. Like the first one, they survived it. She made the political move to get rid of her biggest threat, which was Teresa and Camilla, and they won many of the daily. So pretty much they sprinted to Paula's first win. Battle of the Extras one was another good win. She was working with the majority alliance. She won daily. Were they in elimination? Yes, she won an elimination and she was booted in the second to last round before the final. And then her final season, Rivals 2, was a really good one. She stayed out of elimination the entire season and she won a majority of the eliminations with. No, sorry, the majority amount of the dailies with Emily. She wasn't in elimination at all. So she's pretty good in dailies too. The thing with Paula is her elimination record is not strong compared to the women above her, which is why she's only at six here, despite her good track record. She won five and lost five, so she has a 50% pitch rate. Alrighty, so now we're at the top of the top when it comes to the era to women. Heck, we might be at the top of the top when it comes to the women overall, but that will be another list, another video for another day. So at fifth is Sarah Rice, who competed on the Ruins, Fresh Meats 2, Cutthroat, Rivals 1, Battle of the Exes 1, Battle of the Seasons 2, Rivals 2, Battle of the Exes 2, and Rivals 3. So Sarah came into the show very promising as she was one of the only rookies who could hang with the longtime veterans. She was the only rookie who made it to the final and the only person from her team to make it to the finals with Kelly Ann. And they did have a chance of winning, and she went into a few eliminations that season. Her good rookie season definitely gave her an inflated sense of ego, which definitely followed her throughout her next few seasons. The biggest example of this is Fresh Meats 2, where she had a huge sophomore slump as she was very cocky, arrogant, and ended up going home second. Cutthroat was a good season for her, where she never went into elimination because she was seen as a strong player, and she did make it to her second final, so I will give her props there. Rivals 1 was not really a good season for her. You could argue that she made it to the end game of the season as it was the second to last women's round, but there are only four female eliminations before the final, so it's whatever. But anyways, here her cockiness and the arrogance came back to bite her as she thought she was so much better than Danae and Jasmine, mainly Danae, but she was the one who got their elimination screwed up, causing her to be eliminated. So here's where she started to have some bad luck, where she was DQ'd second on Battle of the X's one because her partner Vinny harassed Mandy, to put it lightly. And yeah, it wasn't due to anything of her own doing. And something similar happened in Rivals 2, where because Trishelle left, they didn't want to give Sarah another partner, so they DQ'd her. On Battle of the Seasons 2, she was a vet at this point. I was considered an older player, so she was playing with all of these new players, and she had her back against the wall. She went into a few eliminations within the season, but after the first half of the season, her team ended up adapting pretty well, and they weren't a target at all. And she made it to her third final, where she got third there. Her final two seasons were definitely her stronger seasons, where she played a lot more individualistic and selfishly on Battle of the Exes 2, where she finally decided to use West and Bananas against one another, and she threw in Leroy against Bananas, so she could guarantee herself spots in the finals, and it did work. She got her first win with Jordan. But ultimately, with her final season, this paired her with Johnny Bananas, and they pretty much steamrolled the season. They never went into. Sorry, I don't think they went into an elimination. Yeah, they went to the final elimination of that season, but pretty much they cakewalked, they dominated, they won a bunch of dailies in the season, and she ended her season, her run on the show, in a win. But because of the money stealing twist, she didn't get any money. So she always was pretty good at dailies, good in the mental stuff, and she has a 6-2 elimination record, meaning that she won six and lost two, causing her to have a 75% elimination rate. Ultimately, she's not number four or higher because I do feel like her earlier boots were mainly due to her own doing compared to the next person I'm going to talk about. That fourth is Evelyn Smith, who played on Fresh Meat 1, The Inferno 3, The Gauntlet 3, The Island, The Ruins, Fresh Meat 2, and Rivals 1. And I know I have changed like at all. Okay, so let's go through her seasons. She was eliminated first mainly due to Danny and Austin screwing it up, not because she did anything wrong. She won the Inferno 3, though she wasn't that memorable on the season. It was a huge team season, not much to really talk about there, but she won her first win. The Gauntlet 3, she was seen as one of the only women who could compete with the men, where she was often called a man, and she definitely believed that she was better than all the women, men were just stronger. But it got her runner up. It seemed like she was on the outs from here on out from the island where she had her back against the wall, but she was strong enough to make it through those face-offs and was able to plot her way to the end where the guys wanted to work with her to get to the end, and it did end up working. So the ruins, she went in second against Kelly Ann, where she easily could have won that round, but she ended up quitting because she was just over it. Um, I do dock her for quitting, but it's somewhat more understandable. It wasn't like she did anything wrong to be in that position to begin with, but she was on the outs. Fresh Meat 2, she and Wes came in having all the power, and they definitely used it to their advantage at first, but then they're scared of going into exile, and they overplayed their hand, where it led her to be isolated and for her to be booted in the second to last round before the final. So she made it to the end game there, and then her final season, Rivals 1, was just very easy. She and Paula won the first elimination, and then they dominated the dailies, and they had an easy win. Her record getting eliminations is 6-3, so she won six, lost three with a 67% rate. So she has a worse elimination record than Sarah, but I feel like Sarah's early boots were more so her fault compared to Evelyn. But the reason why I don't have Evelyn higher is she doesn't have the same longevity as some of the others, and she never competed in an individual season. So we have that data for the other three that we just don't have with her. At third is Camila Nakagawa, who competed on Cutthroat, Rivals 1, Battle of the Exes 1, Battle of the Seasons 2012, Rivals 2, Free Agents, Battle of the Bloodlines, Rivals 3, Invasions, and 3030. So she was the rookie who was consistently thrown in on Cutthroat. I believe she lasted like two-thirds through that season. She was outplayed on Rivals 1 because Paula saw her and Theresa as one as second strongest duo, so she was out second there. Out of the Exes 1, she was partnered with Bananas, and they had control over the house, which gave Camilla her first win. So she definitely had that in her favor. And then they had to go into the last elimination there. Battle of the Seasons 2012, they were consistently thrown in because Fresh Meat were seen as the vet at that point. She was booted fourth, especially because Big Easy quit. Yeah. Um, Rivals 2 was a turnaround season for her where she went into a few eliminations there with Demi as they were partnered, and she got to her second final. Free Agents was a forgettable season. I think she was booted mid-season there. Battle of the Bloodline, she was booted very early. I think she was like the second or third boot there, but that had nothing to do with her. It was because her sister lost the elimination, though they were targeting her sister to get to her. It's a very weird format that season. Rivals 3, she made it midway through the season, but due to her and Tony's constant fighting, they were DQ'd. And then she ended her run on two great seasons where she was the runner up on Invasion of the Champions, and she won Dirty 30, where she won several dailies and several eliminations and had her back against the wall. Though she got herself in a bad position politically, like two-thirds through the season due to her own antics. She won a lot of dailies, which I'm honestly shocked at the amount of dailies that she won. And these were mainly in the paired season, so that is impressive. And when it comes to her elimination record, she won 9 and lost 4, so she has a 69% hit rate. I think the thing with Camilla is that she's not as consistent as some of the other two above them, and they have a bit more longevity, and they have better elimination records. So by this point, we're kind of just splitting hairs. So that's why she is where she is, but she has an impressive record nonetheless. At second is Carmaria Sobello, who played on Fresh Meats 2, Cutthroat, Rivals 1, Battle of the Exes 1, Battle of the Season 2012, Rivals 2, Free Agents, Battle of the Bloodlines, Invasions, 3030, Vendettas, Final Reckoning, World Wars 1, World Wars 2, All Stars 4, Battle of the Eras, and Threats and New Threats and Vets. So I'm not going to go over into her detail with Carmaria because she has way too many seasons, and I got time for that. So she makes it deep, and by deep I mean either the end. Yeah, she makes it to the end game very often. She has done it in most of her seasons. The only seasons where she hasn't is Fresh Meats 2, where she was booted immediately due to her being partnered with Doral. Battle of the Exes 1 and Battle of the Seasons 2 were also weaker seasons. She and Abram didn't perform well. They're booted midway there. Battle of the Seasons 2, they're booted early due to Fresh Meat being seen as the vets. But even on seasons where she did make it to the end, like Cutthroat, Rivals 1, and Rivals 2, she wasn't seen as one of the stronger women, but there was a consistency building there. From free agents onward, she was seen as a strong player. She went to several eliminations on free agents and was booted in the endgame of that season, partially due to her injured hand. Battle of the Bloodlines was her first winning season. She played pretty well politically there. She and her cousin won when they needed to, and she got her first victory. Invasions wasn't a good season for her at all. But from Dirty 30 to Other Worlds, honestly, no. From Dirty 30 all the way to All Stars 4, she made it to the finals. So she made it to 6 finals in a row, which is very impressive. And for a lot of them, she didn't even have to go into elimination. So World Worlds 1 and 2, she didn't go into elimination. I don't call her going. Okay, she did go into. No, she didn't even go into elimination on Dirty 30. either, and I think she escaped it in Vendettas too. So she was in a comfortable position a lot of the seasons where she didn't have to go into elimination. But she still showed on seasons like All Stars Rivals and All Stars 4, wrong season, and Battle of the Eras that if she needs to go into elimination, she can pull it out. She was booted right before the final on Battle of the Eras. And obviously, New Sets and Reds was a good season because she had to leave early due to her mother passing away. She won a lot of dailies, don't care to go through all of them, and she still has a great elimination record, as she has a 15-6 elimination record, meaning she won 15 and lost 6, meaning that she has a 71% elimination rate. So at 1 is Laurel Stuckey, who competed on Fresh Meats 2, Cutthroat, Rivals 1, Free Agents, Invasions, or Otherworlds 2, Ride or Dice, Battle of the Eras, and All Stars 4. So she was on a great streak with her first 4 or 5 seasons where she made it to 4 finals in a row, and those were her first 4 seasons. Fresh Meat 2, she won a lot of dailies and a few eliminations with Kenny. She was really the MVP there. Cutthroat, she was still one of the strongest women on the season there. Rivals 1, she had to really help Carmaria through those eliminations, and she was really the anchor of that team. She got runner up in all 3 of those seasons, so not last place, so that is impressive. And then she went away for a while, and she came back in free agent. She was thrown into several eliminations, and she won a fair amount of dailies as well. But pretty much no one was beating her that season, so she ended up winning. Invasions was a pretty good season for her, as she was booted right before the final, but there weren't that many rounds, especially for the champions, anyways. And then afterwards, her streak got worse. She was booted second in Otherworlds 2. She way overplayed her hand on that season, and it bit her in the ass spectacularly. Ride or Die, she was booted like a third way through the season. Not a notable season for her at all. And Battle of the Era, she got booted 2/3 through the season. She could still win dailies, but her endurance was clearly gone. But she did win All Stars 4 when she won several dailies throughout the season, and I don't believe she went into elimination there either. And this yeah, she has 2 individual wins. She still has made it to the end game in a majority of her seasons, and she has a good elimination record still, as she won 10 and lost 3, so she has a 77% hit rate. So when looking at the Era 2 woman, I added Aviv because she's the new Era 2 person who made it to at least 3 seasons. But outside of that, I don't think anyone's spot has changed. And I think that's partially due to the inactivity of the Era 2 women overall, outside of a few exceptions. But it's interesting looking at them because there's so many strong challenge players in this era regarding women that I don't think Era 3 and Era 4 has in common. Okay, so we are halfway there. It's always interesting looking at this era with the women, especially for the reasons that I've already stated. I do think they're kind of insular with the exception of 1 or 2 because usually came in, they do their seasons and then they're done for good. Not many of them have even returned to All Stars compared to the Era 1 or even some of the Era 3 people. So Era 2 is kind of their own isolated thing, but there's so much diversity in the era, especially with the formats that I think we got to see the best and the worst of a lot of them. I do think things kind of take a downturn with the Era 3 woman, and the Era 4 woman didn't get as many opportunities in comparison. So it's going to be interesting to look at those eras again. Thank you all for watching. I'll be back with something else soon. Bye.